An ordinance changing the use area and height districts of parcels of land east of East 105 Street between Churchill Avenue, Orville, map change 2687. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Administrator, Zoning Manager. I'm here really for this map change. This is for the project, Phase 2 of the Gateway Churchill project off East 105 between Churchill and Orville. And really, this is just to promote walkability and support a diversity of housing typologies in alignment with our Connecting 2020 plan, as well as without this proposal, this project couldn't move forward. It's already approved and designed. This is supported by Councilman Conwell as reflected in this letter here. And so basically what you see here is the current zoning. This is twofold why we're here today. So this project on the southern side along Orville came through pre-COVID and then during COVID. And they were really at the, they were given the benefit of the urban forum overlay along East 105, but then there was a reconsolidation and diversion of parcels and reconfiguration, which means that for the Phase 2 of this project that's fronting north along Churchville Avenue, they do not get the urban form overlay. And so, as you know, they would need to be set back for residential setbacks. They would need to be set back 15% or the average depth along the street. And so what we're proposing here is to reconfigure all of this. Also, as you'll notice, is there's a split zoning issue between the orange and the brown. That's two-family and multifamily. And when you consolidate lots, the most restrictive zoning applies. So in this case, it would be two-family, so the multifamily project would not be able to go forward. So what we're proposing here is changing it all to multifamily G2, and then adding the 5-foot map-specific setback along the parcels between Churchville and then also along Orville. That'll bring the project down on Orville back into compliance now that this new configuration of lots exist. As you know, a map setback is a required front yard space in which no structures may be located. It's indicated on our building zone maps and can only be changed with legislation, and it takes precedence over all other setback regulations. So this is the current context. As you can see along Orville, the first phase of this project has already been built. This is along Churchill and along Northwestern View as well as your Southeastern View, and you can see that there's a range of differing and varying setbacks. This is looking southwestern along Churchill. Currently, where the other side of the project is going to be built, and across the parking lot is the Orville project that already exists. And again, just another view just to give you all context. And we're really just bringing the zoning in compliance with Phase 1 of the project, but also allowing Phase 2 to go forward. Again, this is just showing you the differing views of the different housing typologies that already exist along both of these streets. And that's the proposal. And I'm here with James from Community Development regarding the land bank transfer and then a project representative.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go to the land bank transfer after we review the zoning piece first. Madam Clerk, is there anybody signed in for public comment? Did we receive any by email or any other way? Okay, thank you. Public comment portion is closed for 12:03. We'll go to the committee for questions. Any questions from the committee? All right, thank you. Committee, it's simple. We do these a lot, and so we're all aware of how this go and the work that's being done. Commissioner Green has reached out. I don't see Councilmember Conwell. Just for those who are watching, including council members, you have a piece, you need to be here to discuss your piece as well, just like we expect administration to be here. So, and he's in support, right?
Yeah, I have a letter if you need to see it.
Okay. All right. See no questions from the committee. Ordinance number 1203-2024 stands approved.
Thank you.
All right. Zoning portion of the meeting is closed. Madam Clerk, please call the roll for the regular agenda items. Here. Thank you. Ordinance 990-2024 by council members Conwell, Harrison, and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the commission of purchasing supplies to sell certain city-owned property no longer needed for the city's public use located on East 105 Street and Churchill Avenue to the NRP Group or its designee for purposes of residential development. Where is Aaron at? I thought he would be here this morning. That's my guy there. Okay, hey, we'll take you. I met him, how many years ago now? It's been a while. I tell you, a good person. Aaron is just a great guy. He listens. We had issues at some of the properties. He came out, addressed them, and then obviously we got Mr. Skinner. After that, he was equally as accessible and supportive. So NRP has no issues with me. Good people. Good people. All right, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. As you know, we're joined by Carolyn here from the NRP group regarding the project. So this piece is about the land transfer. There's a City of Cleveland parcel and also a land bank parcel that's going to the project. The Davis is the name of the project, the site of the former Harry Davis School. It was formerly dubbed Churchill Gateway. The name has been changed to the Davis to honor the school name. So the project will include a 70-unit low-income housing tax credit multifamily building, along with parking in the rear. And just to orient you to the location, it's near East 105th Street. This is the building, the former school site with the red dot on it. Orville is the street to the south. Churchill Avenue is the street to the north. Superior is the solid line further north of that, a block away. As Ms. Leonard mentioned, this project came together during COVID. It was a long time bringing it to this point. It had received low-income housing tax credits from OFA for the first phase of the project, but originally there were 34 parcels from the school site here. Those parcels were split and then consolidated for 3 different phases of a project there on that site. So the first phase went in parcel A. That parcel is sort of an L shape because at that time we worked with NRP Group to not only develop the first phase building, multi-unit building, but also to build a street, excuse me, that would connect Churchill and Orville Avenues to cut that super block. The block goes from East 105 to East 110th Street, so that helped cut that block. So this is the site as it currently is today. Phase 1 is the building to the south on the Orville side. You can see the street that cuts through the block, and then there's the track field portion to the right. So the parcel in question that we're selling for phase 2 of the building is the parcel to the north on Churchill Avenue, and then the land bank is the smaller parcel to the left of that large City of Cleveland parcel. This is what phase 2 is envisioned. It's a 70-unit building with, excuse me, this is the first phase, I'm sorry. The first phase building, which includes 52 units of low-income housing, 30 to 60% AMI. It also has some townhome units in the front and,
really nice.
and parking in the rear, and about 3,000 square feet of commercial space that's used by university hospitals. The second phase would be the shaded portion to the north, and then you can see additional parking to the south of that building between Churchill and Orville Avenues. There would also be 11 accessible spaces in that parking lot as well. Okay, these are some the elevations that reflect what the building would look like from the north side, the east and west and south side. The south elevation is the rear side that faces the parking lot. The north side is the side that faces the street. And floor plans here. So this is the first and second floor. Each floor would have 18 1, 2, 3 bedroom units as well as accessible units. So there would be 18 units on the second, third, and fourth floor. The first floor would have 16 units so that it could accommodate some community space there to the left at the bottom. Seems to be a little slower loading.
Did you keep clicking?
Okay. So that's the third and fourth floor. And then just a summary of what the would be in the building. So we're talking about 70 units of low-income housing, 30 to 60% AMI, 68 parking spaces with 11 of them being accessible. There would be bicycle racks, community room, covered mailboxes, exercise room, planning area, playground area,
Toot your,
and outdoor patio.
Toot your mic down a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Here.
Okay, I'm sorry. So bicycle racks, exercise room, playground area, outdoor area. The ground floor would be slightly elevated to create separation from the street so that there's some privacy on the first floor units. And so that's all I have. We are proposing selling that parcel to NRP for the development of this building. And I don't know, Carolyn, if you had anything.
Carol, anything you want to add?
No, just to appreciate it.
Turn your mic on. It'll turn green. You got to hit it, tap it hard.
Oh,
Now,
thank
you've been
you.
here long enough. Now, you should know how to do that. All right. Thank you, Carol.
Nothing to add. If the group has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee? All right, again, we're used to this work. We see these a lot. You know, we understand what goes into these. We have no questions. We just wish you all much success on the project. The first one was a success. You got some buy-in from organizations to occupy the ground level space, which is good. And are you anticipating any other tenants coming in? Any ground level space commercial for the second building, or is it only in the first phase?
Only in the first phase. Second phase, we were able to do, more residential units,
Okay.
taking out that commercial space. So
Sounds good. All right, thank you. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 990-2024 stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
We found it.
thank you.
It was all over the place, man.
I know it was.
I'm telling you.
Thank you.
All right, ordinance number 44. Commissioner, I'm sorry, Director DeRosa. You know, it's all the same, Commissioner DeRosa.
Glad to get called.
Everybody gets the work done, you know?
That's right.
We appreciate it. Ordinance 44-2025 by council members Bishop and Harrison by departmental request, an emergency ordinance upon vacation of Old West Boulevard to revoke the existing encroachment permit to the Tamir Rice Foundation for the Tamir Rice Memorial, authorizing the mayor and the Commissioner of Purchases and Supplies to execute a deed of easement over the revoked encroachment permit property, granting to the Tamir Rice Foundation certain easement rights to improve and maintain the Tamir Rice Memorial, granting easements to utility providers for any existing facility through or under the right-of-way of vacated Old West Boulevard, and declaring that the easement rights granted are not needed for the city's public use. This is heard and passed by Municipal Services Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this ordinance relates to the Tamir Rice Memorial, which is a wonderful memorial located at Coudell Commons. And at the request of Ms. Rice, the administration wishes to move forward with a few steps here, which will provide permanent easement rights to the memorial. When the memorial was conceived and about to be built back in 2020, the city issued an encroachment permit for the majority of the memorial site because the memorial was built on existing right-of-way. Now, Old West Boulevard had been relocated, I think it was back in the 40s, but the right-of-way remained through Coudell Commons, and that's where the memorial is located today. So what we're proposing to do is, at the beginning of this year, or actually the end of last year, we introduced a resolution for the intent to vacate that piece of West Boulevard, which goes from Detroit Avenue to West 98th Street. That's a three-step process, but what this ordinance allows us to do, once that vacation is done, we will revoke the encroachment permit, and we will put in its place a permanent easement in the same size over the same area that the encroachment covers today. And what that will do is provide permanent easement rights to the Tamir Rice Memorial in perpetuity.
Gotcha. Thank you. At least I'm personally fully supportive of the work that they're trying to do. And this makes absolute sense. You know, just remembering the conversation from municipal services, this is the right steps to take. All right. Any
Yes.
questions from the committee? Seeing no questions from the committee, ordinance number 44-2025 stands approved.
Thank you.
Are you staying for 1173?
Yes. Yep.
Ordinance number 1173-2024 by council members McCormick, Bishop, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control, Public Works, and/or capital projects as appropriate to enter into one or more submerged land leases with the state of Ohio and future consent to sublease with various tenants for the submerged land from West 3rd Street to approximately East 49th Street for a term up to 99 years with two 50-year options to renew and exercisable by the Director of Port Control and to replace, modify, amend, extend, or otherwise adjust existing identified submerged land leases and subleases. All right, Director.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. So Port Control and other departments here today proposing an additional submerged land lease for an area of lakefront around North Coast Harbor and south of Burke Lakefront, comprising of the areas around the municipal lots and other areas around the stadium and North Coast Harbor. So the reason for this, state of Ohio, you cannot own any lands of the lake. To obtain control of those lands, you need to get through the state of Ohio, through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, a submerged land lease, so you have control of those lands. Much of the land on the lakefront, basically from around where the railroad tracks are today, north, was at one time lake. And then over time, the lakefront was added on, and additional lands were pushed out into the water. And so over that, a lot of that happened, decades and decades ago. And so a lot of the land was never put under submerged land lease. The submerged land lease process came later on, after some of those lands were actually created. And so what we're seeking to do here is get some of the area of the lakefront that is not currently under a submerged land lease included in an existing submerged land lease that we have today. So a good portion of where the stadium is and other parts of North Coast Harbor are under an existing submerged land lease, and this piece will be adding other lands to that. Kind of a cleanup to the situation, we'll call it. And then what this will allow in the future is future lakefront development for these areas as well. So I have with me Assistant Commissioner Airport Strategy John Hoos to add anything I missed or anything he'd like to add.
No, the director did a great job. I mean, I would just reiterate the importance of it. Basically, in order to have full title of all the land you see out there, it's necessary to have the submerged land lease. So that's important for future development projects, obtaining grants, that type of thing. So that's all I would add.
Sure. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. So how did we get to the 99 years through the chair to the team on this lease?
Good. Chair to the councilman, just through negotiation with ODNR, since you're trying to secure like site control, from the city's perspective, the longer, the better that lease is.
So it's beneficial for the city to have a longer lease. Okay.
Exactly.
And then this chairman to the team does this prohibit any uses along the lakefront? Period. Question mark, not period.
To the chair of the councilman, it doesn't prohibit really any uses. You would have to approve through city council ordinance, whatever future.
Yeah,
use.
no, I'm saying, I understand this process, but I'm saying, does this inherently by itself prohibit a playground, a dog park, a building, anything like that?
No.
It does not, okay. At any part of this lease, at any part of the lakefront, does this put any restrictions on the use or future use of the waterfront?
Chair to the councilman, no.
No? Okay.
You just need approval of ODNR.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that there's approval
Well, and
process.
Just matter of clarification, and per our, like, the submerged land lease that we're going to be modifying to add this land, it's basically, I guess I sort of misstated in a good way. It has to be consistent with the city's master plan for the lakefront. So
Okay.
that would be the restriction.
So
whatever-
Chairman to the Director,
Yeah.
if down the road the city decided to close the airport, does this prohibit the redevelopment of Burke Lakefront Airport in any way?
To the chair of the councilman, no. As long as
No.
it was consistent with
Thank you.
lakefront
I
master.
just want to make sure I'm asking these
Yeah.
questions, we're getting
Yeah.
out to the public.
Yeah.
May I?
Yeah,
Through the chair
Director,
to the
go ahead.
councilperson, this particular piece we're talking about today is not for Burke Lakefront, though. Just want to make sure.
Oh, I thought you said
clarify that.
Burke. South side.
South of Burke. This is area south of Burke.
To East 49 Shoreway.
Yeah.
Oh, south of Burke, I see. I thought you meant the south part of Burke.
No.
Got it, okay, understood. Okay, and then Chair to the team, I remember years ago that there was an issue with the Port of Cleveland and the submerged land lease. This is years ago, I'm trying to even remember what it was about. Has this been cleared with the Port of Cleveland? Are they supportive of this through the chair?
Chair of the councilman, yes, it's, we'll have to go for a resolution, but their staff has been fully vetted on what we're trying to accomplish, and they're supportive.
Okay, so does Chair to the team, does this impact their dredge work? How does this interact with their dredging work on the airport?
The chair of the councilman should have no impact.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure we're asking these questions
Yeah,
now,
no,
because
that's
the
good
last time we
questions.
did this, I got frantic phone calls from the Port of Cleveland saying, what the heck are you guys doing? So I want to make, and this is years ago, I think
Yeah.
5 or 6, 7 years ago. But I just want to make sure that this time around, we're crossing all of our Ts and dotting all of our Is on this, so. Okay, Chairman, thank you. Appreciate the time on this, and I have no other questions.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm looking at the map of where this land is, and it's mostly the Shoreway. Some of West Third wrapping around the west side of the stadium, and some of the street wrapping around the east side of the stadium. But it's mostly the Shoreway over till, well, just to east of Burke. My question through the chair: if this becomes a 99-year lease, how far into the current submerged land leases to the north are we? So if this one goes on to a 99 schedule, the Burke itself is on what year of a how many year land lease for that property? Because we're staggering, I guess,
Yes.
is what I'm asking.
Through to the chair to the councilperson. So there's a separate effort underway right now to revise the submerged land lease for Burke itself. That will
Okay.
be, that is a separate piece. And what that will do is Burke will become part of this same submerged land lease. This will all be one submerged land lease 0070. When all these different pieces are done and all this work is done, this will all be one large submerged land lease.
Okay, and so does that mean consolidating the parcels through the chair as well? Because last I recall, Burke is multiple parcels.
Through the chair to the councilperson, no, we're not touching really any of the parcels, and a lot of the areas actually aren't in a parcel at all in
Correct.
some areas
Yes.
as well. So this process with ODNR does not involve the actual like parcels of land.
Okay. I guess the direct question then would be through the chair. Are we going to run into another need to ask for another submerged land lease in 10 years, or in 20 years, or in 30 years? Or are we lining them all up to be together into one big lease?
Through the chair to the councilperson, we're lining these all up to be coterminous, all one big-
Coterminous, that's the word I didn't know
There you
existed.
go. And so, yes, they will all be on this same 99-year coterminous schedule.
Got it. Okay. Last question through the chair. So this is almost entirely the Shoreway, and ODNR is who we would be seeking the submerged land lease with. But I believe through the chair, ODOT owns the Shoreway. Is that, or who owns the Shoreway?
Through to the chair to the councilperson, ODOT has a right-of-way for the actual roadway through there, and the lands are owned by the state of Ohio.
Right.
And this process will give us control of the submerged land lease, but then ODOT does still have a right-of-way through for the roadway itself.
Because the shoreway ostensibly belongs to them. It's their infrastructure.
The
they maintain.
infrastructure belongs to
Okay.
them, and they have the right-of-way through it, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions? All right, seeing no further questions, ordinance number 1173-2024 stands approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The word of the day.
All right, ordinance number 1061-2024 by council members McCormack, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance determining that the establishment of the North Coast Waterfront New Community Authority will be conducive to the public safety, convenience, and welfare, and is intended to result in the development of a new community, and declaring the North Coast Waterfront New Community Authority to be organized and a body, politic and corporate, and defining the boundary of the new community district, appointing members to the Board of Trustees to such authority, and establishing related requirements, authorizing intergovernmental agreements, and amending sections 131.78, 455.09, and 455.10 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended, relating to parking fees and declaring an emergency. All right. Scott Skinner, Jessica Trevisano have a presentation on the screens. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
Scott and I are just going to go back and forth through this presentation. We're here to talk about the North Coast Waterfront New Community Authority. A New Community Authority is an economic development tool that is permitted by state law that supports development in a specific area by collecting charges from property owners or lessees within that specific area. Really importantly, and I'll say this a bunch of times throughout the presentation, property owners or lessees have to opt into the charges. They have to proactively say that they want the charges on their site. Those charges can include things like parking fees, food and beverage fees, hotel motel fees, charges based on income tax or property value, etc. An NCA is geographically defined through a petition process. It, again, assesses charges only if property owners or users opt in, and then uses funds collected from charges within the NCA area to support development within the district. So this is different than other authority that city council or other bodies have. Usually a legislative body has broad authority to impose taxes on a certain use, but it's citywide, right? This is a way to impose a charge, not a tax, on specific uses within a specific geographic district.
And I would just add in that all of the revenues and all these charges can also only be applied within that specific geographic district.
There are, on the previous slide, 55 NCAs in Ohio. There is one in Cuyahoga County. It is in Richmond Heights, at the old
The mall.
Richmond Heights Mall. Two examples that I'll give throughout Ohio.
Oh, that's an NCA?
That's
yeah,
right.
it's an NCA.
Yeah, the shared parking, shared amenity spaces, all the infrastructure was financed through an NCA.
Really?
Yep.
There's an NCA in Bridge Park in Dublin. This is an NCA that assesses charges on retail, hotels, and property valuation to support public space and infrastructure investments, specifically district parking. That NCA generates about $2.5 million a year. And then there's also an NCA in Cincinnati. This one is an NCA that charges a 1% amenity fee on food and beverage purchases made within the stadium district, not in the stadiums themselves, but within that district. This NCA generates about $500,000 a year, and that's used to support marketing efforts in that district. The process for creating a new community authority is set out by state law. It's rigid and complicated, but we are almost through it. The first is a submission of a petition by a developer, meaning the property owner or entity that controls the land, and that petition has to set forth very specific things that are enumerated on the screen. From there, council has to pass a resolution affirming that the petition in and of itself is sufficient. That happened late last year. Then there's a public hearing on the new community authority. Again, that happened late last year.
I'd add and was expertly facilitated by Councilman Harsh.
That's right. And then there is an ordinance that authorizes the creation of the new community authority. That's the ordinance that we're before you, is before you today. And then once that ordinance is passed, the NCA board needs to adopt its bylaws, negotiate with property owners and lessees to set fees, determine how those fees will be spent, and then can later add property to the NCI. The new Community Authority Board is made up of at least 7 people, and for the North Coast Waterfront Development Community Authority, 4 are appointed by City Council to represent interests of present and future residents. 1 is appointed by City Council as the representative of local government, and then 4 people are appointed by the developer, in this case the city, because the city is the one who owns the land, to represent developer interests.
So so I'm clear, now you have 4 that's appointed by City Council, so those names were chosen by the council president?
Correct.
Okay, he chose those 4 names.
Correct. Jessica just mentioned, within the state legislation, city council's appointees have to represent the current and future residents and uses of the lakefront. So those were the 4 that were selected that represent, again, the Rock Hall, the Science Center, the port, and Metro Parks.
He also selected you, Chairman, as the appointment for City Council to represent local government interests.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I won't give you too much trouble.
Thank you, Councilwoman House.
Just a question. Is there a way, and I know, Councilman, anyway, that we can, for this, it could be like a council representative or their designee? Because there are times stuff be happening in our lives where we just can't show up. And so I know people didn't ask it, but I really feel like it's important to do that because many of us, hence myself, when I looked at it, I'm on 8 different committees in addition to the 4 committees here. And I don't know about Councilman Harrison, but I just think we should consider that when it's a title like that.
Yes. So as part of this process, once the new community authority is formed, the board will hold its first meeting, vote on bylaws, vote on process, all those things. Within those bylaws, we can absolutely add a designee allowance for certain members of the board.
The reason why we would create a new community authority is it allows property owners and lessees to buy into the redevelopment improvement of the area around them. Again, an NCA assesses specific charges within a set area with the consent of the property owners or lessees on specific designated items that are in the petition. Those charges can be used to support public infrastructure that are shared by the property owners or lessees of the area. Those charges are set up in a way that supports bond financing. Based on the charges, those bonds are taken out not by the city, but by the NCA or in partnership with another entity like the port. So that's not general obligation debt, that is debt based on the NCA charges. And an NCA is separate from and can be used alongside of a tax increment financing. It can be used with a special improvement district, can be used with a DORA, the outdoor refreshment areas, and other economic development tools.
One additional point that I wanted to make is unlike a SID where a certain percentage of property owners can sort of opt in, then everyone has to opt in. With an NCA, each individual user has to opt in. So no matter what users opt or don't opt in, we cannot unilaterally force any of the users down on the lakefront to participate in this unless they choose to.
A new community authority is a quasi-governmental entity that is set up by state law. It is subject to Ohio's open meetings and public records laws. The NCA board is appointed by city council and the developer, again in this case the city, and then all charges and fees have to be disclosed to the public. So no hidden fees that are part of the NCI. You want to go through this? Yeah?
Sure. So this is actually going to be a 2-step process. So after this NCA legislation hopefully gets approved, we're going to come back in a few months to add land to it. So you just heard a lot about submerged land leases. I'm happy to go into the weeds and details of it, but because as it is right now, different submerged land leases on the lakefront have different lease terms. Only some of the lakefront land, that's the blue that you see on that far left slide, or that far left image, is able to be a part of the initial NCA. NCA that we're talking about to form now. Because lease terms are different on all of the land in the red area that you see in the middle slide there, we will have to come back and add those properties to the NCA at a later date. So assuming and hoping this NCA is established, right after that, we will have another petition to work through this process again, another public hearing, and we'll come back to this committee. The full NCA territory that we're talking about, the most important image on this slide, is the image on the right. So all of that land will be what is eventually in this new community authority.
And that is, the boundaries are?
That's the boundaries. I mean, you can see there, it's the Brown Stadium, the parking lot land north of the stadium, Voinovich, and all of the property in there, the Great Lakes Science Center, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Burke, the Burke parking lots, the municipal lots, and Willard parking garage.
Okay, so it extends east to the edge of Burke?
Correct.
Okay. That includes like the old aviation school?
That's right.
Okay, got it. Okay. So
But again, they have to opt in to participation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
most of it is ours.
So just because we're tossing a lot of acronyms out to you, just to sort of explain this difference here a little bit, the organization that I run, the North Coast Waterfront Development Corporation, that was established by City Council a year and a half ago and is funded through ARPA funds for 3 years, that is separate from the New Community Authority. So the NCA is a different entity on its own. Mm-hmm. The North Coast Development Corporation, so my organization, will be the manager of the New Community Authority. And what that means is someone has to work with the entities to actually collect fees, someone has to manage the bond issuance process, someone has to manage the board and make sure that they're meeting, the minutes are taken, and that development agreements are being heard by the board. So my organization is the manager of the NCA, but the developer of the NCA is actually the city of Cleveland because the city owns all the underlying land.
So you're a big brother?
Kind of.
Okay, all right.
Except you're on the board, so you'll be keeping an eye on me the whole time.
Absolutely.
So what you see here is a list of potential NCA charges and uses. None of the formation of the NCA does not trigger any of these charges happening. What will happen is after the NCA is formed, the users, if they choose to, will enter into a development agreement with the NCA entity that will outline what charges they accept. So literally it's a process. If the city of Cleveland wanted to participate, or if the Great Lakes Science Center wanted to participate, they would have to petition the NCA to join it and ask for charges to be placed on themselves. What you see here are the maximum possible charges for any of the uses that could go on the lakefront. So this is done thinking over the next 10, 20 years as we see development on the lakefront, what could also be there. So hotels, apartments, restaurants, things like that. These are not the actual charges that will be levied down on the lakefront. These are the highest possible charges that you can levy without additional council approval. So you see, as an example, right now, the NCA would have the ability, with permission, for as an example, the Great Lakes Science Center, to charge a $2 charge on admissions or a ticket if the Science Center opts into that. If for whatever reason the Science Center decided in 10 years it wanted to increase that to $3 or $4, we would have to go back to council to get approval to go over that amount. And then the uses of charges. So there's sort of a short-term and a long-term use of some of these charges. In the short term, when it's the existing users down there, those charges will go to continuing the development of the lakefront. So there are engineering studies, there's design work, there's all sorts of work that needs to happen to continue to move the development of the lakefront further. It will partially fund my organization to continue to do that work, to continue to seek out grants from the federal government, to continue to move that process forward. As we start to see actual development on some of these parcels, what you've seen in other markets, so Jessica talked about Bridge Park earlier, is you can levy NCA charges on, as an example, a multifamily developer coming down to build apartments on the lakefront. You can then issue bonds against those future charges and use that to build out public space or build out shared amenities like parking structures or things like that. The important thing that I want to emphasize here is This is the tool that we plan on using to build out all of the public space that is a part of the master plan for the lakefront. So regardless of there being a stadium present, a large public park on the waterfront has been a key principle of all of these planning efforts for the last several years. This is one of the most important tools that we can use to actually build out that space, because parks don't pay for themselves, they don't generate revenue. This is a tool that you can use where you can issue bonds off of the city's books and still facilitate the building of public space.
Just a quick overview of timeline. The week of September 23rd is when council received that draft of the NCA petition. September 30th is when the resolution was passed determining that the petition was sufficient. November 12th is when that public hearing was held on the new community authority. We are here in February 2025. And then, as Scott mentioned, we anticipate in March, April of this year coming back to add additional property. This is just final summary. The legislation proposed creates the initial NCA, sets the board members, permits the city as a user in the area to negotiate NCA charges, and clarifies that NCA charges are not parking charges. The ordinance does not force any property owner or user to participate and does not charge fees. And then the next steps is, if this legislation passes, the NCA will adopt governance, and then again, we'll return to council to add additional property to the NCA.
All right. Thank you, Scott and Jessica, for the presentation. A lot of great information. Hopefully folks are watching at home. You know, I know we'll get some folks to reach out and want to have further discussion, so we thank you for the presentation. And if anybody wants this available, you can always reach out to us, and we can make sure they get it for those who are listening if they want to take some time to digest it a little bit further. All right, we'll open up to the committee for questions. Councilman McCormack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate this and the presentation today. Chair to Mr. Skinner. Are you sure you want Representative Anthony Hairston on this board? Are you sure about that?
Through the chair to the councilman, absolutely yes. I've worked with the councilman for many years.
That's right.
Yes, yes. And, you know, to toot his horn, he's got the countywide experience as well, which I think is perfect fit for this committee as well. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put forward an amendment. I also have commentary. Do you want?
Sure, yes.
Which one do you want first?
Commentary and amendment.
Okay. So, Chair, thank you again for hearing this today. I think this is a great step forward. And where I put this is another initiative that protects the general fund and allows us to achieve the goals that we want on our public spaces, waterfront, et cetera. Chair, it was before my time, but I never understood why the former council, I guess before all of our time, because I'm the elder on this committee, shot down this in the flats. Because this is a process in which if you go to the lakefront, you don't spend any money, great. You don't, contribute to this. If you don't go to the lakefront, you don't contribute to this, right? Your tax dollars don't go to it. This is a way to generate revenue for folks that go down to the waterfront and spend money on whatever they may be spending money on to reinvest back into the lakefront. So again, for the folks in our community that do not want to go to the lakefront, do not want to spend money at the lakefront, they don't have to contribute to this, which I think is a great way to approach things like this. It really does not put the burden on our general taxpayers, be it in the general fund or through property tax at the county or otherwise. So these are the types of steps, Mr. Chairman, that I think really makes sense to create revenue sources for this type of work and for this type of development here in the city of Cleveland. And again, I want to be very clear to the viewing public that this is not about charging entry to the lakefront. This is not about, when this lakefront is built out, you can happily go down to the waterfront and not spend a penny, happily, right? So this is not about entry fees to the waterfront, not about forcing anyone to spend anything at the waterfront. The waterfront it will be the people's waterfront. So if you want to pack a sandwich and tea and not spend $1, God bless, right? So I just want to make sure that that is out there in the public as well. But again, I appreciate the innovative approach to this, and Mr. Chairman, you also leading on this, because again, I think this is a really good way to equitably generate revenue for these types of projects that do not put the burden on the general taxpayer and do not put the burden on folks that want to come down to the waterfront without spending any money. So I think this is a really smart approach on this. And then with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer an amendment.
Yes, sir. Well said, Councilman. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, so I'd like to move to amend ordinance 1061, 2024. In section 2 at A, strike lines 5, 6, 7, and 8 in their entirety and insert, citizen member 1 shall be Amanda Taunt. Citizen member 2 shall be Talianje Thomas. Citizen member 3 shall be Sean O'Malley. Citizen member 4 shall be Brian Zimmerman. At B, strike line 4 in its entirety and insert the local government representative shall be Anthony Hairston. And at C, strike lines 12, 13, 14, and 15 in their entirety and insert developer representative shall be Donovan Duncan. Developer representative 2 shall be Thomas Einhaus. Developer representative 3 shall be Ricardo Leon. Developer representative 3 shall be Jessica Trevisano.
That was 4.
4, I'm sorry.
Got it.
1, 2, 3, 4 were those numbers. I think our law director has. Do you have the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So you understood my numbering as you were reading
And you
it.
see we have a new face on the law side too as well.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion? All right, see no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, ayes have it. Thank you.
Congratulations to your appointment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Councilman Harsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I continue to be generally supportive of this. I just want to clarify a few things for people who might be watching and maybe trying to anticipate some of their questions. Through the chair, to whoever wants to answer. Has anyone already agreed to opt in to the charges that we detailed there and said that they're looking forward to this start and they're just waiting for us to get the paperwork done?
Through the chairman to the councilman, nothing that is papered, obviously, yet. We can't do that until the NC entity is formed. The City of Cleveland's parking division has agreed to some sort of TBD charge within the boundaries of what is listed in the legislation. The Great Lakes Science Center has also agreed to some sort of TBD parking charge as well. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Browns, the apartments down there, and Nuevo are all TBD. They've been briefed on this. We've had discussions.
Sure.
There's an interest, but nothing has been specifically talked
There's no
about.
reason to finalize things.
Correct.
But there's general good vibes.
That's right.
Okay.
And I would add in, Councilman, that the largest users down on the lakefront, the Browns, the Rock Hall, and the Science Center, are all represented on my board as well.
Right.
And different employees of a couple of those organizations will be represented on the NCA board.
Okay. Through the chair, if an organization chooses to opt in and then changes their mind, what's the process for opting out at a later date if they decide they don't want to continue with the?
Yeah, to the councilman through the chair, opting in is a pretty serious decision, and so when a user opts in, those fees are typically recorded in some sort of documentation. If the fees wanted to change, they would have to then renegotiate with the NCA to change those fees.
Just like any contract. And the reasoning behind that is to have fees that are solid enough to issue debt on.
Yeah,
you have to have
right.
certainty that those charges are going to be there.
But there is no expiration date to an opt-in. It's just in perpetuity until something else can be renegotiated.
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. Then my last question is, can we go back to the slide showing the total NCA land mass? Right. So that, what do we call that? Salmon? Is that salmon color?
I think that works, yeah.
Yeah, okay. On the southernmost edge, there's, is that, am I reading that, am I looking at that correctly? Is that Lakeside Avenue and all the government buildings on Lakeside?
So that is the municipal lots and Willard parking garage on the southernmost portion of it.
The southernmost is Muni Lot and
Willard parking garage. I would add in for Willard. Sorry, Councilman, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
For Willard specifically, it's outlined that charges can only be applied on weekends and special events. So we're not charging folks to come down to City Hall to get a birth certificate.
So
or anything like that.
what I'm getting at there is it's kind of hard to see on that map, but the buildings on Lakeside Avenue, including City Hall, the courthouse, I don't know, the FBI has a building down there. Those aren't part, right?
They
It
are not.
begins, Willard Park Garage, which is right here, is in it. But the rest of it is just the land between the shoreway and the buildings that,
That's correct.
okay. Okay, cool. So no, so in other words, the city won't be able to put a charge on getting into City Hall or going to the courthouse.
No.
Willard Park Garage would only be a surcharge for special events on the weekends. Coming down to City Hall, you would still get into, I think the surface lot is free for visitors and we can.
That's right.
Okay. Lastly, I'll just say this, Chairman. A lot of people have asked me here and there why we are doing this, and I think the short answer through the chair is that the city has not developed the lakefront in 150 years. And I use the 150-year mark because the 1876 survey shows water to our north, right? That land literally doesn't exist more than 150 years ago. So in the 150 years that we've had land to our north, we've managed to put an airport, a stadium, a very nice stadium that's in very good shape and capable of lasting another 30 years, and two restaurants and a science center and a rock hall. And that's the extent of 150 years of lakefront development. And I think that having a organization dedicated solely to management, development, and the full realization of that land could possibly do what the city hasn't been able to do for over a century and a half. So I look forward to seeing this take shape and good things to come. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh. Any further questions from the committee? All right, see no further questions. Ordinance number 1061-2024 as amended stands approved. All right, and we'll chat and we'll get it figured out with the next set of land we need to take care of. Okay, thank you. All right, that is, Madam Clerk, I think that's all, right? All right, DPS adjourned.